Just imagine if Bill Gates had disappeared after launching Windows 95, or if Steve Jobs had vanished prior to the release of the first iPhone. What would motivate someone to create such an innovative technology and seemingly want nothing to do with it?
I don't want money, I don't want fame, I don't want adoration, I just want to be left alone.
On April 26, 2011, Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto sent his final email to fellow developers, in which he made clear he had moved on to other projects, at the time handing over a cryptographic key he had used to send network-wide alerts.
I think it is utterly fascinating that we don't know the creator of Bitcoin. What could possibly be the motivation for us not knowing who this is?
Who could be behind such an innovative technology?
I am convinced. Craig is Satoshi.
Craig Wright has publicly claimed to be the main part of the team that created Bitcoin and the identity behind the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. These claims are regarded as false by much of the media and has the cryptocurrency community divided.
I am convinced. Craig is Satoshi.
Just to sow a bit of controversy for fun, I'll explain why I think he's probably not Satoshi.
In December 2015, two parallel investigations by Wired and Gizmodo suggested that Craig Wright may have been the inventor of Bitcoin. Subsequent reporting, however, raised concerns that Craig Wright was engaged in an elaborate hoax. Hours after Wired published their allegations, Craig Wright's home in Gordon, New South Wales and associated business premises in Ryde, New South Wales, were raided by the Australian Federal Police. According to the AFP, the raid was part of an Australian tax office investigation.
Australian police have raided the home and office of a man rumoured to be the creator of the virtual currency Bitcoin. Federal police searched Craig Stephen Wright's properties in Sydney but said the raid was about tax.
On 2 May 2016, the BBC and The Economist published articles claiming that Craig Wright had digitally signed messages using cryptographic keys created during the early days of Bitcoin's development. The keys are inextricably linked to blocks of Bitcoins known to have been created or mined by Satoshi Nakamoto. The same day, a blog post on the website www.craigwright.net associated Craig Wright with Satoshi and posted a message with a cryptographic signature attached. Security researcher Dan Kaminsky said in his blog that Wright's claim was a scam, and Bitcoin developer Jeff Garzik agreed that evidence publicly provided by Craig Wright does not prove anything. Jordan Pearson and Lorenzo Franceschi Bicchieri said that Craig Wright simply reused an old signature from a Bitcoin transaction performed in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto.
First of all, very simple signaling theory. He had the opportunity to take two different paths of proving that he's him. One path would have been to make that exact kind of proof, make a signature from the first Bitcoin block, put the signature out in public, make a very simple 10-line blog post that anyone, including cryptographers like Dan Bonet and Ben Kaminsky and so forth, can verify that it's him, and just post that out there and let the cryptographic community do it. Instead, he's taken this path where he's wrote this big long blog post with 200 lines that's so confusing that even Dan Kaminsky said it's too confusing, and tried to only show that signature to a few select people, and we're supposed to trust them. So, in general, signaling theory says if you have a good way of proving something and a noisy way of proving something, and you choose the noisy way, then that means chances are it's because you couldn't do the good way in the first place.
Earlier in an interview with the BBC, Wright had promised to give extraordinary proof to an extraordinary claim. He has yet to provide any verifiable evidence of his authorship of the original Satoshi white paper or collaboration with known early developers. In theory, his claim should be easy to prove by simply supplying a message verifying the claim using the original Satoshi Nakamoto GPG private key. However, he is either unable or unwilling to provide this. On Thursday, 5 May 2016, shortly before closing his blog, Craig Wright sent around an email link to a news story site, saying, "Craig Wright faces criminal charges and serious jail time in UK." Craig Wright stated that, "I am the source of terrorist funds as Bitcoin creator, or I am a fraud to the world. At least a fraud is able to see his family. There is nothing I can do." The article Craig Wright mentioned to O'Hagan has since been retracted.
If Craig Wright is him and he claims to be him, why wouldn't he just reveal it? It's like one thing you have to do to prove it. And he
Well,
can't.
BBC did a story with him. I think it was BBC did a story with him, getting him ready to reveal the key, and he was supposed and he couldn't do it. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen the video.
I haven't seen that video.
It's if you've not seen it, it's very interesting. Like it's I'm gonna show the world that I'm the
Yeah.
guy, and it's like, oh, it's not working. I
No.
forgot. So it's kind of a little bit awkward on what.
Exactly.
In June 2016, the London Review of Books published an article by Andrew O'Hagan about the events, later included in his book The Secret Life. 3 True Stories, in which O'Hagan spends several weeks with Craig Wright at the request of Craig Wright's public relations team, which, as revealed in the book, was set up as a result of a business deal between Craig Wright and various individuals including Calvin Ayre. O'Hagan was with Craig Wright during the time of his various media interviews. O'Hagan also interviews Craig Wright's wife, colleagues and many of the other people involved in his claims. Craig Wright claimed to O'Hagan that he had provided an invalid private key because he was unable to provide the valid one as a result of legal obligations agreed as part of a previous Seychelles trust deal.
Proved to the journalists that he was Satoshi, but his discomfort was the most obvious thing in the room.
I was the main part of it. Other people helped me.
And the words that he was using, the staccato nature of his expression.
I want money, I don't want fame, I don't want adoration, I just want to be left alone.
It seemed evidence to me that he was almost breaking down slightly under the questioning. It was unwelcome questioning, and this wasn't hardball questioning at all. Rory Ketland-Jones was asking, if you ask me, friendly questions, softball questions that any journalist would ask who's trying to explain a story. He was taking them as hard-nosed questions that went to the very core of his doubts about this whole situation of being revealed.
Craig Wright told Finder in 2019 that Bitcoin's creation was a group effort, that he drove the project, and that Dave Klayman and Hal Finney were involved. Craig Wright registered US copyright in the Bitcoin white paper and the code for Bitcoin 0.1 in April 2019. A spokesman for Craig Wright told the Financial Times that this was the first government agency recognition of Craig Wright as Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. The United States Copyright Office issued a press release clarifying that this was not the case and that the Copyright Office does not investigate whether there is a provable connection between the claimant and the pseudonymous author.
So the statement they came out with was, in case in which a work is registered under a pseudonym, the Copyright Office does not investigate whether there is a provable connection between the claimant and the pseudonym author.
The copyright was towards the white paper itself and was granted by the US office. Now, the thing is, a lot of people have jumped the gun and stating that it means things that it completely doesn't, and vice versa.
So what it doesn't mean is that Craig Wright is 100% Satoshi Nakamoto. As we said, this is a step towards the claim that he's trying to make. Now, anybody can go ahead and make a copyright claim towards something. The thing to be clear on here is obviously it was done through a pseudonym, which was under the alias of Satoshi Nakamoto.
In February 2018, the estate of Dave Klayman initiated a lawsuit at the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida against Craig Wright. Plaintiff Ira Klayman, suing on behalf of his deceased brother Dave Klayman, has tried to make a claim against what Craig Wright's legal team describes as the Satoshi coins. That stash of Bitcoin, now worth nearly $50 billion, was supposedly mined as part of Craig Wright and Dave Klayman's early collaboration. Craig Wright claims he owns the Satoshi coins, but he has never demonstrated that he holds the private keys that would allow him to move, send or sell them. In fact, some of the wallets have been used to sign messages calling Craig Wright a fraud. Serious analysts suspect that Wright simply picked a list of wallets with big Bitcoin balance and claimed to own them. However, Craig Wright's claims to own $50 billion worth of Bitcoin were not in dispute the trial. Instead, the jury was asked to evaluate email messages and other documents that plaintiffs argued showed Craig Wright and Dave Klayman had formed a partnership to work on Bitcoin. There was significant ambiguity in those communications, and the jury didn't find the evidence convincing, rejecting the Klayman estate's claim. But Craig Wright's control of those coins, which could support his claim to be Satoshi Nakamoto, was simply bracketed for the purpose of the trial taken as given and not directly interrogated. So the court did not reveal that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto, as most of the people say the court did. But the statement made by Craig Wright's lawyer Andres Rivero after the trial, he said,
"The decision reached by the jury today reinforces what we already knew to be the truth. Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto, the sole creator of Bitcoin and blockchain technology."
This statement was made outside the court proceedings by Craig Wright's own attorney, obviously has nothing to do with the jury's ruling. The case did not consider the question of Satoshi's real identity. So, after all this years, Craig Wright has been claiming on and off that he created Bitcoin, but has failed to provide any proof of his ownership. The creator could easily prove their identity by moving even a fraction of the cash of Bitcoin, or using the private key that controls the account. So, do you believe Craig Wright is the person behind Satoshi Nakamoto's pseudonym, and if so, why hasn't he revealed the key? Tell us in the comment section below what you think about all of Craig Wright's claims.